now I welcome Mr. Shatrujit Nath. He is creator of the runaway national bestseller series Vikramaditya Veer Gatha, a four-book mytho-fantasy arc which comprises the Guardians of the Halahala, the Conspiracy at Meru, the Vengeance of Indra, and the Wrath of the Hellfires. He is described as a new face to Indian mythology by DNA. Mr. Shatrujit writes for movies and web shows as well. He is also the author of Karachi Deception and Indo-Pak spy thriller. After his interesting talk yesterday on the mechanics of writing a mytho-fiction, his today's session will be on an informative talk on plot or character, what drives the story. I welcome you, sir.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Kiran. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka. And yes, I think the session that we had just before this was a very, very fascinating session. Unfortunately, I didn't catch all of it. I was there for probably the last 10-15 minutes of it. But it was also interesting because we kind of, naturally segued into character, which I thought was, it almost looked as if it had been kind of, choreographed that way, but it hadn't been, but it felt like that. So yeah, so first of all, thank you everyone who's there, who's made time for this session early in the morning on a Sunday when you'd rather be lazing in bed or watching TV or something, and you're here. So thanks for coming over. And what I really want to do with this session is I want to kind of I'd like to keep it. We can talk about character and plot the whole day, or maybe across 2 days or 3 days. So there's so much to talk about, to share, to learn, to understand. But unfortunately, we've got just an hour. So I'm going to kind of keep it as tight as possible. I'd like to keep it to about half an hour, 35 minutes, yes. And probably leave at least about, if we get about 20 minutes of questions, that would be good. So let me start. Let me try and share a screen and see if this works. Just give me a minute. I'll continue talking as we, yeah, it's taking a little while, but anyway, we'll come back to that when it's ready. But what I really wanted to, okay, how many of you can I just, are there any existing writers out there? Are there people who are interested in writing? I just want to get a sense of, what kind of crowd we have out there.
Yes. So I would request everyone to put it in the chat box. And towards the end of the Q&A, we'll be unmuting the participants one by one.
Okay.
Or Sneha, can we just quickly unmute them all for this 5 minutes, because sir wants to interact with them?
Yeah, just to get a sense of.
Yes, right. We need to get the introduction of our audience. So Sneha, kindly unmute everyone for a while. And please, I would like the readers, especially like sir said, if there are any interesting readers or you have a particular question, just introduce yourself. Yeah.
Okay, very quickly, just your name, and are you a writer, or are you a reader, or are you both? Very quickly.
Shatrujit Abhinav this side, reader, writer, both.
Okay, next.
Sir, Krish Bora this side, reader, writer.
Okay, great.
Hello, sir. Harshita Mishra this side, and I'm a reader and a writer both.
I didn't get your name.
Harshita Mishra.
Okay, Harshita Mishra. Okay.
Aditya this side, reader.
Okay. Aditya, okay.
Shruti here, reader and writer both.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Pradnya here. I'm a writer.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. So it looks like we do have a lot of writers as well, right?
Hello.
Yes.
Nilima here.
Yes.
Reader, writer, both.
Yes, I remember a question from you yesterday. I remember that. Yes, Nilima. Thanks for coming. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's do one thing. Let's kind of go back to mute and let's do this. I think I'm having a problem with my system tray. It seems to be acting up, so I don't want to kind of upset this. So I don't have a very detailed PowerPoint presentation, so which is why I'll just kind of go with what I've got. I think it's kind of convenient that way. So I think the session that we're having is all about character or plot, what drives the story? And this is a debate that that I think a lot of aspiring writers, writers who have been kind of who have been kind of got in, who have entered the process of writing but are still trying to figure it out. I think there's a lot of debate about what is more important. Is character important or plot more important? Before we go into character and plot, let me go one step back and look at the whole notion of ideas. Now, if one were to look at an idea can actually come from either from character or it can come from plot. So the origins of an idea can come from anywhere. It really doesn't matter. Let me give you an example. I think it's important if one were to understand this from the point of view of an example. Let us take the Battle of Plassey. I think most of you, and I've just kind of taken this as an example. It's not something that I'm working on, and it's not indicative of anything. It's just an example. Anyone who's studied Indian history is familiar with the iconic battles of Plassey and Buxar, right? The Battle of Plassey was one of the turning points in the British East India Company's acquisition of Bengal, which eventually led to the British actually, taking control of the entire Indian subcontinent. Which is why the Battle of Plassey is such a critical battle, because that really was the turning point where the colonization of India actually began. So if one were to say that I want to write a story on the Battle of Plassey, now what you can do is you can approach this either as an idea or as a character. Okay. So if you said that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Battle of Plassey and I'm going to look at the entire socio-political backdrop that led to the Battle of Plassey and the rise of the East India Company and the fall of the Nawab of Bengal, who was Siraj-ud-Daulah. Okay, so this is one way of telling the story where you're looking at the plot. The idea that you have is I'm going to look at what led to the Battle of Plassey and how did the Battle of Plassey play out. Okay, that's one way of looking at the story. The other way of looking at the story is by turning around and saying that, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a character study of the man who was the Nawab of Bengal at the time of the Battle of Plassey, that is Siraj-ud-Daulah. So I'm going to look at Siraj-ud-Daulah and try and understand the man who tried to resist the expansionist plans of the East India Company and how and why he failed. Okay, so these are two ways of doing it. So it's the same idea. Battle of Plassey is your core idea. But what you do is the moment you take the battle as your backdrop and the battle and what led to the battle as your driving narrative thread, it becomes a plot-led idea. The moment you take Siraj-ud-Daulah, for example, or for it need not be Siraj-ud-Daulah, it could be Robert Clive. Robert Clive was the guy who led the Brits, who led the English East India Company. It could be Robert Clive. You could even take the character of Mir Jafar, who was the commander-in-chief of the Nawab of Bengal, who betrayed, who accepted a bribe from the British and betrayed Siraj-ud-Daulah. So these are our characters. So you could look at a story from the point of view of either a plot or a character. Now, this is something, what is important is that when you sit back and decide whether I'm going to tell a character-led story or a plot-led story, you have to look at, it's not an either or to begin with. Okay, both of them work. There is no one that is better. It's what is the objective behind your need to tell this story. I think that's the primary idea that you've got to embrace. That's the primary objective that you've got to embrace, and that determines how you tell the story. So, for example, let me now go back to my first book, which was the Karachi Deception. I'd like to use that as an example. So when I started writing the Karachi Deception, what I had was a plot. In fact, I didn't even have a plot. I just had a premise. And there were no characters. What was my premise? My premise was 3 Indian commandos are sent to Pakistan on a black ops mission to go and kill an underworld don who is hiding in Karachi and helping the ISI against India. So that was the premise. The only character that exists in this statement that I have made are 3 Indian commandos. I didn't even know who they were, and a fugitive Indian don who is loosely modeled on Dawood Ibrahim. And in the book, his name is Irshad Dilawar. And so that's it. I just had this. This was very clearly a plot-led idea, because the whole story is about how these commandos get to Pakistan, how they go to Karachi, what they do, what are the kind of challenges they face, what are the kind of obstacles that they have to overcome to finally try and get to this fugitive don and assassinate him. Okay, so it's a very clear plot-led story. So when I started writing this, I really had no characters in mind. Okay, I mean, I had to start conceiving these characters from scratch. Okay, so, but whereas on the other hand, if I were to, as I said, if I had to pick the story and if I were telling the same story of the Karachi deception from the point of view of, say, Irshad Dilawar, the fugitive don, now suddenly my story changes. Okay, if I'm looking at how there is an Indian fugitive underworld don who's hiding in Karachi and how he's trying to escape a group of Indian commandos who have come to Karachi to kill him. So my lens changes, the way I look at the story changes, because then the character and how he behaves drives the story forward. Okay, there is going to be an overlap in what I have said, and I'm going to get to that. But my primary point out here is that you could go with character, you could go with plot. There's no one way of doing things. It's primarily what is it that you want to do? What is the focus? What is the objective of what you want to do? That's really, really what drives your narrative. The other part that I think we have to understand is that neither plot nor character can sustain without one another. So you need plot, you need character. For the idea to take root and grow, character needs plot, plot needs character. Let me give you an example again from the Karachi deception. When I started writing the Karachi deception, as I said, I had a premise. I knew 3 Indian commandos are going to go to Pakistan and they're going to do something. They're going to go and try and assassinate this underworld don. In the course of the story, at roughly about the midway point, something happens which compromises the mission or compromises this assignment that these 3 commandos have been given. And they're on the verge of being exposed. They've actually been exposed to the ISI and the Pakistani security establishment. Okay, so this is a crisis point for the 3 Indian commandos who are in Karachi. And when their handlers in India get to know that the mission has been compromised, what they do is, and this is, you could call it a spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler because you know that this is going to happen. What happens is that the Indian handlers sitting in India, what they do is they tell the commandos to abort the mission. Okay, because the mission has been compromised and the commandos are now in danger of being caught, killed, whatever it is. Okay, so abort the mission. Now, what happens is that our hero, his name is Major Imtiaz Ahmed. What our hero Major Ahmed does is that he decides to disobey his superiors who have given the order to abort the mission, and he decides to go ahead with the mission. His whole point is that I'm in Pakistan, I'm in Karachi, we have come so far and we are so close to our target, we are never going to get a second chance. Now, and that's how the story then goes on. Now, what happens is that for me to get in the story, for me to get to this point, what happens is our character needs motivation. Our character needs to be driven. Okay, so what happens is that I need to build character. I need to show this man's determination, his mental makeup, which makes this decision that he takes, A, believable, and B, you root for him and this decision, because when you understand this man and you understand what drives him, you understand why this is so critical for him. So what my point here is that while there is a plot, we also at the same time have to build character in such a way that the character leads to plot and plot leads back to character. So to put it this way, there is character who's internally driven. He or she has his or her motivations, agendas, wants, needs, desires, greed, lust, whatever it is. Okay. These are inward drives. What the character does is that the character wants something, so the character steps forward to achieve that. Now, when the character does that, there is a change in the environment. Okay. And when I mean the environment, it is the outer environment, because the character has moved up a piece on the chessboard. So the outer environment has changed. Now, when there is a change in the outer environment, there is a reaction to that. And this is a plot reaction. So the plot reacts, there is a change, which again creates an obstacle or a hindrance for our character. So our character has now got to sit, recalibrate, okay, and then go through an internal process and make a second move to counter. So what we are actually seeing is punch and counter punch. Punch from character, counter punch from plot. Punch from character, counter punch from plot. That's what we're actually seeing. And that's what starts giving momentum and movement to the narrative. So character does something, plot reacts. Character reacts to that, plot reacts to that. And that's how we really build momentum for the story. So story is actually a constant interplay between plot and character. Okay, that's really, really what it is. I want to go back to the example from, say, Vikramaditya Veergatha. And I'll use a lot of examples from my books simply because it's part of the process. I understand how the process happened. If one were to take Vikramaditya Veergatha, I'd kind of spoken about it very broadly yesterday. What had happened was that I had this idea of the halahal, which I'd spoken about yesterday, this poison that's found from the ocean of milk of Kshir Sagara, and how some of that poison is still left, and Shiva has not destroyed all that poison. And that poison is a potential weapon that can really destabilize the world. So I had that idea on one side. And again, as I said, on the other side, I had an idea of how I wanted to make Vikramaditya and his Navratnas as a band of superheroes. Now, what is actually interesting is that if one looks at the halahal idea, it was just a story of this poison. I had no idea what to do with this. Okay, this is in a way a kind of a plot device. It's a plot device of a halahal or a poison still existing in our world and which can threaten our world. Vikramaditya and his Navratnas are superheroes, but they had no purpose. Superheroes need a purpose, right? I mean, Batman has to do something. He has to have a purpose. Otherwise, he's not Batman. Otherwise, he's just, Bruce Wayne. What makes Batman Bruce Wayne Batman is purpose. What makes Clark Kent Superman is purpose. So my problem was I had a set of characters. Okay, very interesting characters. Vikramaditya and the Navratnas, Betal is a character, all of that, I've got that. Okay, but they have no purpose. They have no story. Okay, they have no plot. I've got a plot out here, which I don't know what to do with because it has no characters, it has no objective. The truth is that for almost about 4 or 5 months, these two ideas existed in my head side by side. Okay, and every second day, third day, while I was exploring ideas for books, these were not the only ideas. I had a couple of other ideas, but I would keep exploring. What am I going to do next? And I would evaluate both ideas and not know what to do with either. I'd look at Vikramaditya, I'd say, I don't know what to do with this. I'd look at this. One day, it's just pure, a blessing from heaven, coincidence, whatever you might call it. I was at a friend's office and I was just, walking around, and suddenly it just struck me, what if I put these two together? And suddenly what happened was that plot got characters and characters got plot. So suddenly the halahal is something that needs to be protected, and it's got a set of superheroes, that is Vikramaditya and the Navratnas, who've got to protect the halahal. And Vikramaditya and the Navratnas suddenly have a purpose because they have to protect the halahal. From whom all that comes later. It's the Devas, the Asuras, All that happens later. My point is, the moment you were able to put characters and plot together, magic happens. That's when the stories, the chips start falling in place. One by one, you start figuring it out. Okay, this is what this is about. Okay, you start seeing patterns, you start seeing ideas, you start seeing plot lines, subplots. It's only when you get plot and character together, because otherwise the plot is just there. You don't know what to do with the plot. It's when character comes in that the interplay really, really works. Okay, I'll give you another example from this. I think one of the best examples that one can look at when it comes to the interplay between plot and character. I use a lot of examples from fantasy, because fantasy is a space that I love. We all can go back to the Lord of the Rings. I think almost all of us have seen Lord of the Rings. At the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, what happens is that Frodo Baggins is in the Shire and he's leading a happy life, very peaceful, very contented. His world is perfect. What happens is that Gandalf arrives, and of course Bilbo Baggins is going on his next adventure, journey, whatever it is. And what does he do? He gives Frodo Baggins the ring, right? This is actually the first change that happens in the story. Now, in this case, what has happened is that the change has actually come from outside. Okay, the change has come from outside, and it's been given to Frodo in the form of a ring. But the moment Frodo gets the ring and the ring is exposed, what happens is that Sauron, who's sitting in Mordor, realizes that the ring is out. He knows where the ring is. And what does Sauron do? He immediately sends the Nazgul, or the ring wraiths. Or what he does is he sends them to find the ring and bring it back to him. What happens is that Gandalf, this is all plot. Okay, right now this is all plot. What Gandalf does is he tells Frodo that your life is in danger. What you need to do is you need to take this ring to Lothlorien. You need to take this and give it to the elves, and they'll know what to do with it. Frodo initially does not want to do this. Okay, now this is his internal struggle, the character's struggle. He doesn't want to do this because he's leading a perfectly happy life. Why does he want to do that? He loses the choice when the ring wraiths arrive, and he's got to flee the Shire. He flees the Shire and somehow makes it. He arrives when he comes to the place where the Fellowship is formed. They figure out that who's going to go and take the ring and destroy it in the fires of Mount Doom in Mordor. When this entire debate is happening, what happens is Frodo stands up again. Now this is an internal thing. Frodo stands up and says, "I will destroy it," and that's when the Fellowship is formed. So what you're actually seeing is plot and character, constant interplay between plot and character. What the plot does something, the character responds to it. They form the Fellowship. They're going towards, they cross the mines of Moria, and they're heading towards Mordor. When what happens is Sauron sends his orcs, and what happens is that of course, even before that, Gandalf falls and dies in the mines of Moria, and then the Fellowship is broken. Now, what does Frodo Baggins do? Frodo Baggins is the only thing Frodo has is Samwise. He's got the Samwise and he's got the ring. Frodo can turn around and say, "I've lost the Fellowship. Okay, there's no point. I can't do anything about it. So to hell with the ring." He can throw it away and walk away, right? He says, "No, I have taken on the responsibility of destroying the ring. I will go with Sam. I will go alone," actually, he says. And that's when Sam goes with him. So again, that shows character. So that's really what this is all about, play between character and plot. Having said that, and spoken so much about the importance of plot, I would still say that what you need to do when you're working on story is pay a lot of attention to character. And when I mean character, I don't necessarily mean your main protagonist alone, but also surrounding characters, and particularly the antagonist. We had a question, I think, in the last session. Towards the end of the session, we had this question on, how do you kind of have, antagonists who are, how do you kind of create great antagonists, even when you don't subscribe to the antagonist point of view? That's a different conversation. But the point is, you have to have great characters on both sides. And why is that? Because ultimately, characters drive plot. there are a very few exceptions where the antagonist is actually either a force of nature, which is probably a volcano or an earthquake or sharks or dinosaurs or whatever it is, the good typical Hollywood fare. Okay, there are very few of those where the antagonist either is a force of nature or is circumstance. And when I mean circumstance, it could be like The Martian, where this guy is stranded in Mars, or Castaway, where Tom Hanks' character is marooned on this, is cast away in the ocean. So in most cases, the antagonist is actually another character. And what happens is that when you've got two sets of characters who are on opposite sides wanting opposite things, that's really when you start getting good drama going, right? Okay, you've got one set of characters. You've got Sauron out here who wants the ring. You've got Frodo out here who refuses to give Sauron the ring and wants to destroy the ring. Okay, that's what makes the whole dynamic interesting. The fact that neither of them wants to give up. And while I did say that ultimately the story is an interplay between plot and character, it's the movement of the plot always happens because characters make those movements happen. There are constant changes in the environment. Again, using the example punch, counter punch, character A decides to do something, character B responds. Now character A has to respond to B, he or she does something. So again, that's what gives us that momentum, which is what plot is. And it's through the interplay between the characters, it's either two characters or a set of characters that you actually get the plot going, where you move from point A to point B to C to D. So I think it's very important that ultimately plot is the outcome of what opposing characters want. You've got two sets of characters, they're on opposite sides of a divide, and that's what gives us great characters. So again, let's take Vikramaditya Veer Gatha as an example. What do the Devas and the Asuras want? The Devas and the Asuras are in conflict. They are fighting with one another, and they both realize that whoever has the halahal, or the dagger that has the halahal, is going to dominate the other. Okay, so both of them want the dagger. Both sides want the dagger. The dagger has been with Shiva for so many thousands of years, so they can't do anything. They can't take it from Shiva. Obviously, I mean, he's the greatest of them all. Like he's the greatest god around. But when Shiva comes and gives the dagger to Vikramaditya and says that now you've got to protect this, they look at Vikramaditya and say, okay, this guy's a human being, what can he do? Let's go and get the dagger. So the Devas and the Asuras start moving to get the dagger. And what does Vikramaditya do? He refuses to give the dagger. He digs his heels in and he says he and his counselors decide to fight back. So whatever the Devas and the Asuras throw at Vikramaditya, he counters. And there is losses on both sides, obviously, because that's the whole thing, punch and counter punch. So that's really what it is. So if one were to say that, as I said, both plot and character are important. It's very, you can approach the story again, as I said, we go back to the Battle of Plassey example. You could tell the story of the Battle of Plassey through a character, which is Siraj-ud-Daulah. But what happens is that telling the story about Siraj-ud-Daulah is not good enough, because you also have to tell the story of Robert Clive, and you also have to tell the story of Mir Jafar. Because this conflict is essentially a conflict between Siraj-ud-Daulah, Mir Jafar, and Robert Clive. So you've got to play all these three characters together. And it's because they play against one another that you get the plot of how the Battle of Plassey was lost by the Nawab of Bengal and how the East India Company, took control of Bengal. So I think it's very, very important that we do that. Going specifically to negative characters, it's important to remember that your antagonist has to be as powerful, motivated, and driven as your protagonist. It cannot be less. To kind of continue on with the answer to the question that the person had asked in the previous session, you as an author have to put yourself in the shoes of every character you are writing, whether it's the antagonist, the protagonist's friend, the protagonist's sister, the antagonist's uncle, whoever it is. If you're writing Mahabharata, when you're writing Shakuni, you have to think like Shakuni. You have to be Shakuni, because that's how you'll be able to justify the character. Right and wrong are things that, We can't put on the glasses as Mr. As the gentleman in the previous session said. We can't judge. We as writers should not sit in judgment of characters. Yes, we know what is right and what is wrong, but when we are Duryodhan, we have to feel for Duryodhan. We have to feel the insult of Draupadi or Panchali having laughed at us for having fallen into that water. It's deeply insulting when somebody laughs at an accident that we have gone through. We have to feel the humiliation of Duryodhan. That's when we will understand why he reacts the way he does when the Pandavas lose the game of dice. Okay, does that mean that he's right in what he did? No, he's not right. He's still a bad guy. But we have to understand what motivates him. It's very important to understand what motivates each of your characters, because that's really what. Otherwise, what you've got is you've got unidimensional, paper thin characters. You know, you've said, okay, this man is a bad man, and that's it. Why is he bad? Why is the Joker bad? The Joker is not bad because he just became bad. Some things happened to him. That's why he became bad. Okay, so it's important that you pay a lot of attention to your antagonists, because your antagonists are what makes your protagonists work. Okay, no Indra, no Shukracharya means no Vikramaditya, no Vikramaditya Veergatha, no me sitting and talking to you right now. That's really what it is. So Indra and Shukracharya are actually what have facilitated this conversation between us today. That's really what it is. That's how important these characters are. The other important things sometimes to look at, and some of you probably are right, would want to write thrillers and stuff like that. I've heard this a lot, said a lot, that when it comes to thrillers, the importance of characters is not so much, because thrillers tend to be plot driven. Okay, that's the nature of thrillers. So usually drama, comedy. Comedy is also, if it's slapstick comedy, it tends to be more plot driven. But otherwise, drama, comedy, fantasy, all of it is very character driven. Thrillers are more plot driven. That's the broad, it's a kind of a, I won't say it's a consensus, but it's a point of view that exists. I do subscribe to that to an extent, because plot is what really, makes you turn the pages. Having said that, I think somebody is on mute. Somebody needs to go into mute. I think somebody needs to go into mute. Okay. So I think while I agree that thrillers are essentially plot driven, I would like to point out that some of the best thrillers are actually character driven thrillers. Okay, I don't know how many of you have read Gone Girl. Okay, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn is an outstanding thriller, and it happens only because of Amy Dunn's character. She drives that story. She makes that story work. Take out Amy Dunn, there is no Gone Girl. There is no thriller. So it's very character led. There's another thriller of mine. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's called The Devotion of Suspect X by Kigo Higashino. The central character's name is I think Ishigami. Ishigami is the character. Ishigami makes that story work. Ishigami drives that story. Without Ishigami, that story does not exist. So I think it's important. Again, like for example, how many of you, I don't know how many of you have read the Stephen King book called Misery. Anne Wilkes' character is what drives it. Without Anne Wilkes, there is no Misery. Or even for example, The Shining. Without Jack Torrance, there is no Shining. So great thrillers can also have great characters. It's not, you don't need to limit yourself to you don't need to say that, okay, I'm writing a thriller, so I don't need to look at characters. I think this is an important distinction to make. It's important that you understand that even if you're writing thrillers, you need good, powerful characters. I think this is important. Just a couple of more points before I'm going to kind of throw it open for questions. As I said, one of the important things that characters need is layering. You need to have characters who are multidimensional, and it's only when they become multidimensional that they start driving the plot. I'm going to give you 2 examples, okay, from the Vikramaditya series, and they are not necessarily the main hero characters. When I was conceiving Vikramaditya Veergatha and I had Indra as one of my antagonists, obviously, because he's the leader of the Devas. So Indra and Shukracharya were my antagonists. Indra in Hindu mythology, Indra's son is Jayanta. Jayanta is one of Indra's sons and a fairly prominent son. Not much known about him. But so I decided that I'm going to have Jayanta as one of my characters. So I said, okay, what sort of a guy would Jayanta be? So I said that, okay, maybe what we do is that Jayanta is a little bit like, say, Meghnad was to Ravan. You know, that's the obvious. The moment you look at a character like Ravan, he has a son, a loyal, dedicated, powerful, obedient, valorous son who is ready to lay down his life for his father. That's sort of a son. So if Ravan had Meghnad, I said that maybe Jayanta would be Meghnad to Indra. Now, I thought about this for some time, and then I said, okay, what if it's the opposite? What if I take Jayanta and instead I make him an antagonist to Indra? What if I make him a weakling, someone who deeply wants his father to acknowledge and respect him, whose father does not even whose father thinks that he's a weakling, he's good for nothing, he's useless. So, and also someone who covets his father's mistress. So suddenly what happened was, from a son who was brave and chivalrous and all of that, which was a very Meghnad mold, I got a son who was actually working against his father. Working against his father because his father refuses to respect him. Working against his father because he's a weakling, but refuses to acknowledge that he's a weakling, has designs on his father's mistress, and because he has designs, because he wants to kind of show his father how good he is, he does things which make life miserable for our hero Vikramaditya. So Jayanta actually doesn't care about Vikramaditya at all. He's not interested in Vikramaditya. He only wants to impress his father. He wants his father to look at him and tell him that I am proud of you. But his father doesn't care about the guy, right? So now when you have a character like Jayanta, now this is a very interesting son. Okay, you've got a very interesting multi-layered guy who is a wild card. Okay, and he's so much more interesting than a valorous, brave, loyal son, because that would be a stereotype that has been done before. As I said, if Meghnad is the stereotype, but then Meghnad already exists, why would you do another Meghnad? It doesn't make sense. So do something opposite. So my point was, the moment I was able to get Jayanta into a character like this, what opened was so many possibilities that Jayanta's character drives the plot in ways that even Jayanta doesn't know he's driving it. That's something that's very, very important for us to remember. The other character that I go back to is Shanku, and that's a character that we again spoke about very briefly yesterday. Shanku is a character, as I said, multi-layered, because initially I thought that she's an orphan. But then I said that, okay, Kalidasa is supposed to be an orphan. I can't have so many orphans in the King's Council. So I said, okay, so then she has a father. But what is the father? I thought about it for some time and I said, okay, what if her father is a traitor? What if her father has betrayed Vikramaditya in the past and has been imprisoned in the dungeons of Ujjaini? Maybe it's under the palace where Shanku lives. And she refuses to acknowledge her father. She hates her father for what he did. And she refuses to acknowledge the father. She's grown up as almost like an orphan because her mother killed herself because of what her father had done. And this becomes suddenly very interesting, because there will come a point in time when she has to go to her father for help. What happens then? How does that dynamic play? It suddenly becomes so much more interesting when you have got characters who have got internal problems, their own insecurities, their own demons. They are fighting with themselves at one level, and they're also fighting with the circumstance that they are in. So I think creating multi-layered characters is what really helps. Again, in the case of Shanku, having that father out there, I initially had the father there and I really didn't know what to do with him. But as the story goes along, and particularly in book 3, the father plays a very, very important role. I mean, he plays a very key role in book 3. So, so I think it's important that you pay attention to layering your character, making sure that your character is a rich character. Okay, not just someone who's okay. My character likes music. That's not layering. You know, my character, my you have to find something deeper that your character wants or doesn't want, is hiding from, is chasing, is something that your character is afraid of. These are all what makes characters work. I think the last thing which I want to talk about before I kind of throw this open for to everyone is that you must remember that character is what character does. I think there are two things that are very important in when you're telling a story, particularly when you're writing. One is show, don't tell, right? We've all probably heard of it. You know, show, don't tell. You've got to show show the fact that your hero is a hero. You can't have two characters say, you know, that guy's a hero. No, that's not good enough. You've got to, you've got to show the hero doing heroic things so that the viewer or the reader believes that this guy is a hero. That's obvious. That's the rule number 1. Rule number 2 is character is what character does. So if you turn around and say that my character is a brave character, okay, you have to show your character has to be doing brave things. If your character is someone who has an insecurity, okay, you have to that character has to be doing things or not doing things that reinforce that character trait. So character is what character does. Your character cannot get out of character and do things, because then that's not what the character is about. It's very important that you remember that character is what character does, right? So I think we're. How much time do we have, Priyanka? Priyanka or anyone?
10 minutes.
We have 10
Around
minutes.
10
yeah?
minutes.
10, 15 minutes. Okay,
Yes.
great. So I will very, very quickly, what I'm going to do is, I know we can, I mean, I've got a lot more out here that I can, share and discuss. But unfortunately, as I said, we could spend the whole day talking about character. And, I do a session of about 4 hours usually on this. But now we've got 40 minutes, so that's fun. Yeah, questions, please. Anyone? Please unmute.
Should we unmute everyone, because there are 3-4 who have pinned in the question? It'll be faster if they we unmute and we just tell first we can have.
Yeah, I think Priyanka, you take the call and tell the person to
yes.
post the question.
So Sneha, just unmute everyone. I'll just call up and the person can speak. Okay, so first can we have it Aditya Karambelkar? Please pose your question.
Yeah, Shatrujit. So Vikramaditya Veergatha has such a humongous cast of characters, right? So as an author, like, how do you manage and keep track of all of these characters over the lifetime of the story? Has it happened at any point of time that you have completed writing and suddenly realize, oh, I have not, catered to this kind of stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question. In fact, because I think Vikramaditya has got some 75 characters or something like that, and it can get a little unwieldy at times. But no, I think the answer to that is Excel sheets. So I've actually got an Excel sheet where I've got a list of characters, and I've got short-term objectives, medium-term objectives, long-term objectives. Okay, so what I do is that Excel sheet is almost all the time open when I'm sitting and writing. So I know at any point in time which character is where, what that character is doing, and what that character is supposed to do to get to wherever he or she has to get, and how that movement is going to affect the story and the rest of the other characters. So I'm fairly meticulous in that sense. I don't think I've ever reached a stage where I have forgotten about a character. Yes, it does happen sometimes, and this is actually the challenge, because at the end of the day, you've got to sequence the story. So if you've got one character who's in Ujjaini, and another who's in, say, Vatsa, and the third is, say, in Udaipuri, and the fourth is, say, in Kalinga or in Odra, how do I kind of sequence the story in such a way that that the characters keep coming back in a cycle, that the reader doesn't forget who this character is? Yeah. I think that's the bigger challenge. How do you make sure that the reader does not forget? Because if the reader hasn't read about a character for, say, 200 pages, it's likely that the reader would have forgotten this character, and they'll say this, oh wait, who's this guy now? Okay, so I think that's important. So that's really the challenge. How do you kind of make sure that the character keeps coming back. Sometimes, you can't bring the character in physically because, it's just not time yet for that character to, come into play. So maybe what you do is you just use that character as a, two people talk about that character.
Yeah.
It's just a conversation, oh, you remember, any news from Vararuchi in Udaipuri? Okay. So, the reader knows, oh, okay, Vararuchi is in Udaipuri. Yeah, I remember that. Okay. That's it. So I think that's really what the craft is. How do you make sure that that at any given point in time, you as an author are obviously on top of the story, but the reader is also on top of the story and doesn't feel underwhelmed and, oh my God, I don't get what's happening. I think that's important.
Thank you.
So the next question is coming from Krish Bora. Krish,
Yeah, Krish?
you can ask your question.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, my question is that should I have the whole plot ready before I begin actual writing, or should I let the story build itself as I write? Also, while I write, I try to correct my mistakes as I write, and not find a significant progress in the story.
Okay, there are two parts to your question. First part of your question is that was whether you plot completely and then you start writing, or whether you start writing and plot as you go, right? Okay, so I think the technical term for this is plotters and pantsers. They call them plotters. Plotters are people who plot every little detail, and pantsers are people who say they take a decision by the seat of their pants, which means they say, okay, let me start writing. I'll figure it out as I go along. Okay, these are two schools of thinking. I think most authors are a mix of both. I definitely believe that you should ideally be a mix of both, because if you don't plot, at least in the beginning, and if you don't have a broad idea of where you're going with the story, you'll make no progress, because you don't know what you're writing about. So if you're standing out here at the door, you've got a key in your hand, you've got your wallet, but you don't know where you're going. You have to have some idea as to where you're going. Okay, are you going to the market? Are you going to the mall? Are you going to go and watch a movie? Are you going to a bookstore? Are you going to a pub? Where are you going? You must have some idea, right? Are you going by auto? Are you going by bus? Are you going to catch a flight? You must know that. Once, or at least when you have that idea where you're going, then you step out and say, okay, how I'll go there, what I'll do when I get there, that's fine. That's a call that you can take later. Okay. So I think it's important that you must know your plot, basic plot, but you must also allow space for new ideas, new possibilities, and that's what happens when you allow for pantsing, or for when you decide that you'll start writing and figure it out. Because sometimes the best ideas come when you're actually figuring it out. As I said, in Vikramaditya, I had always thought that Shanku is going to be a guy. But that last minute decision of making Shanku a woman was tremendous. It really worked well for me. So I think these are the kind of things. So that was the first part of your question. The thing is that you should have plot, but also work along as you go. The second part of your question was making corrections. I think it's important that you must make. Different people have different techniques. There are some people who just sit down and just write. They don't care, and they put down everything that they have got. Mistakes, errors, logical inconsistencies, everything. Everything is put down on paper, and then in the next draft they come and fix it. I am a person who likes to kind of fix things as I go along, but you must also realize that at the end of the day, you can keep fixing something forever, and it will never be 100% right. So I would suggest, and that's your problem, as you said. You're probably it's slowing it down. You're not making progress. So what I would suggest is, fix something to about, say, 60%, and then move on. Because if you don't move on, then you don't move on. So that's a problem. So, I hope I answered your question. Yeah, please. Next.
Yes, the next coming from Abhinav Shukla.
Yes, Abhinav.
Abhinav, you can ask your question. Abhinav?
I don't think. Can we move to the next person? We'll come back to Abhinav.
I think that. Okay, that was the last one. The others are complimenting you for the plot. So Abhinav, can you hear Sneha? Are they unmuted? Okay, I'll read out Abhinav's question.
Yeah, if you could do that.
Mythology around some characters is very grey, conflicting ideas associated with them across different aspects. So when I have a character, say Duryodhana, some aspects of mythology also treat him as Suyodhana, or actually the good guy who had bad done to him. So how do you deal with such conflicting character traits as a part of your research, and how to go about this?
I think in the case of this is where you've got to decide what is your objective. Again, I keep going back to what's your objective. So, for example, if you think that that Duryodhan has been done an injustice, and Duryodhan was not really as bad a guy as he was painted out, or as and this is essentially comes a lot of it from Anand's works, where he talks about Duryodhan being Suyodhan, and I'm talking about Anand Neelakantan. So Anand is very clear. He says that, look, I mean, why do we look at the Pandavas as the good guys? Because they did almost as many bad things as Duryodhan did. Okay. In many ways, Duryodhan was noble. He stood for friendship. Like, right? Everyone knows the fact that, he was the guy who gave Karna legitimacy. I mean, Karna's brothers were the people, his mother disowned him. But Duryodhan was the guy who accepted his friendship. And that shows great nobility, right? So I think what you need to do is you need to understand, and this is important. We need to look at characters as not as black and white. We need to look at all characters as gray. We need to understand that, as again that the gentleman before me, as he said, you have to understand that there is good and bad in all of us. Duryodhan did something because he thought he had been wronged. Okay, he'd been told that he was going to be king right from the start. So I think the point I'm trying to make out here is there is a traditional view of a character, and if you're going against the traditional view, and if you want to kind of create a new version of that character, I think it's important that you remember why you're doing it and make a compelling enough case. I think it really doesn't matter. There'll be people who agree with you. There are people who will disagree with you. There are people who think that Anand has done the wrong thing by glorifying Duryodhan. There are people who don't think so. And I don't think we should let that kind of hinder us, because no matter what we do, you'll have people who are detractors and people who are supporting you, right? People who like what you did and people who didn't. So I think you should be clear in terms of what you want to do. And if you know why you're doing it, I don't think there's any problem in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just have time for another question coming quickly from writer Bhattacharji. Are you there?
Yes.
Bhattacharji? If you can pose a question.
Yeah.
Yes, please ask the question.
Hi, I'm Rita Bhattacharji.
Yes.
I want to ask, how do you separate organic plot points in writing from Deus Ex Machina plot points?
Okay. I think what happens is it's very important that first of all, you cannot have Deus Ex Machina. It's terrible for you to have that. Okay, it's very bad because it's the most convenient way out of a problem. You suddenly create a solution from out of nowhere. So if you in the course of your writing, if you reach a point where you do not have a choice and you've got to use that device, what you've got to do is you've got to go back to your story and build in that element or angle or subplot, which then makes that happen in a seamless manner and in a way that looks obvious and doesn't come across as Deus Ex Machina. I think that's important because so you have to, in that sense, make it organic. Everything in your story essentially has to be organic. The best, one of the, there is a lot of writing advice that I've got, but one of the best writing advices I've got is that someone once said that your ending, and he was talking about the ending, and that's usually where the Deus Ex Machina, manifests in its most horrible, manner. What this person said was that your ending should be predictable yet surprising. Your ending should be predictable. Listen to these words. It has to be predictable. At the same time, it has to be absolutely surprising. What he essentially meant was that your ending is the most obvious ending for the story. This is the only way a story can end. But the way you deliver it has to be surprising. So that when the reader or viewer is watching it, they sense, of course, this is exactly how it had to end. But it's not ended the way they thought it is going to end. So you spun it a little differently. It still ended the way it did, but you spun it differently. So the surprise is what makes it, that's the payoff. That's when the person turns around and says, oh, wow, I love this. So I don't know how many of you have watched this movie called Andhadhun. Recently, you had the Sriram Raghavan movie. No, in many ways, if you look at the ending, it's the most obvious ending. I don't know how else would you end that movie, right? It's the most obvious ending, but it's got a nice spin to it. It's got a nice little twist to it. Okay, there is another great movie called The Usual Suspects. That's another example of about a great way you end a movie. It's an obvious ending at one level, but it's obvious only after you've watched it. So coming back to your question, it's obvious because it's organic, and when it's organic, that's how it plays, right? So everything in your plot has to be organic. It cannot come from outside all of a sudden. Oh, where did this one come from? It can't happen that way. So no Deus Ex Machina. If you have to do that, please go back to your story and and if you don't have a choice, if that's the only way you can end it, please go back and put those those points in, so that there's already foreshadowing. So when the reader reads this, he says, oh yeah, I had read about this. I knew this was going to happen. No, not that I knew. I understand why this happened, because she had told me this had happened, this would happen, this would happen. That's why this has happened. So did you get that? Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks, Rita.
Thank you, sir. So if there are any other remaining questions, we'll have to sum this up here.
Sure,
and
sure.
if there are any questions, you can mail it to us, and we can then share it with Shatrujit. And then I'm sure, because this is such an intriguing subject, an interesting one, that we can go on and on. But thank you, Shatrujit sir, for joining us for a second day and sparing so much of your valuable time. I'm sure your insights have inspired the amateurs here to write more, to pursue their writing and get it to a different level. We are thoroughly motivated by your sessions, and thank you so much for being a part of AOTL. It really means a lot.
Thank you, all of you, and thank you to all my readers and friends and followers and everyone who's there. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a lovely weekend.